Hi, this is Mayor Warren, and we're continuing with the coronavirus update for the city of Orange Township. Throughout the coming days, as the situation progresses, I will be coming to you with information, with news, and with updates on the coronavirus action plan here in the city of Orange Township. Today, I thought it necessary to develop strategies for coping with the virus, whether we're at home, in the wake of our limited schedules, the fact that we have to change our lives. It causes some stress, and it causes conditions that could lead to stress and other kinds of ailments. Today, I've asked an expert to come in to determine what we can do at home and whether or not we've escalated to the point we may have to see someone about our mental health. I have with me Dr. Steve Margiotis. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. You are affiliated with the city of Orange Township.
Yep.
I believe we secured a grant so we can get your services without charge to the town.
Yes.
And you also have an office in our schools where you service children free of charge.
Yes.
Tell me about your background and where you're from.
Okay, I'm the executive director and the founder of Main Street Counseling Center. We started in 1980. We've been going 40 years strong now. There's no catchment area. We provide individual counseling, groups, families. What we're trying to do is make services as accessible as possible. And like I said, this is now our 40th anniversary.
Wow. Tell me about where'd you go to school? What are your qualifications and your background?
Okay, licensed professional counselor, have a PhD in clinical psych as well. Licensed as a professional counselor and have a PhD from Union Institute, which is based in Ohio.
Oh, very nice. So tell me now, we're in the middle of the coronavirus, and there are people who are trying to cope. There's changes in schedules. The schools are closed. Some of our shopping venues are closed. Our entertainment venues are closed. Just advise us on what we should be doing to cope with those situations and try to attain some normalcy in our lives.
I think what we have to do, Mr. Mayor, is as much as possible, talk to other people. I think when you're in isolation physically, that's challenging enough, but when you're in isolation socially and there's no contact, so whether that's from one end of social media to an old-fashioned telephone, there's got to be contact, because the biggest thing going on now is the fear and the loss of confidence. And that has to be challenged, and that has to be channeled in some way. Because when you're in isolation and your thoughts start running, and this situation is extremely serious, but we have to see it in perspective. Because when you start racing and comparing it to 9/11 or the Great Depression or wars, I think it makes people even more scared. And I think there has to be, and it's a challenge because you can't meet in groups. Right. So you can't have that interaction back and forth. But whether it's texting or phone calls, but there has to be some contact. There has to be. It's not even an option. Because if you're all by yourself and you're watching the news, it's going to be worse.
Right. So we're recommending reach out to your neighbors by telephone, reach out to your family members by telephone,
yes.
Especially if you're alone.
Absolutely.
Very good point. What experience do you have in crises like these, and how have you dealt with people who've had issues just coping?
I think the first thing you have to do, like any issue, you have to acknowledge it, that this is a crisis.
Well, how do we know? How do I know that I may have a problem? How do I know that what I'm presenting is something that's affecting my mental health? How do I know?
Do you feel sadder? Do you feel more angry? Are you drinking more? Are you indulging in drugs more? Are you fighting more with family members? When this happens, you still have to make decisions, okay? And how is your decision-making going on now with this trauma? And for most of us who have been through situations, in traumatic situations, it impacts our ability to make decisions. And you still have to make decisions, large ones or small ones. So gauge yourself. How do you feel you're doing with this situation? Are you jumpy? Are you sleeping less? Are you quicker to be combative with people that normally you aren't? That's where the contact has to come in some way. And I know we can't talk to each other. I know we can't interact with each other so much physically, but there's got to be contact. That's probably the worst thing about this situation here, besides the physical, but the lack of contact. We rely on it more than we think, and we take it for granted when you're interacting with people. But when you're not, and you're alone, and you start thinking and isolating, those thoughts can really get you in trouble.
Now, we can't freely go to the doctor now. We can't sit around in group sessions under these conditions. How is care administered either virtually or by telephone now that we're in these circumstances? How do you administer care?
What we're doing at Main Street Counseling,
Yes.
the caseload right now, we're seeing them via telephone. So we're doing phone sessions. So everybody's having sessions or 2 sessions a week, so they're not cut off from the therapy, but obviously they can't be at the center to see us in person. But we started that last week, so we're running phone sessions with the staff, and we're running the sessions at their appointed time, and we're keeping that dialogue going. And it's something, but it's been a help. It's been therapeutic. So they're not cut off from us.
That's good. You are in the schools. Part of our grant allows you to go to the schools and you counsel children free of charge. And you have an office space in the schools?
Yes, they were nice enough to give us a room.
Okay. And now we have a number of school buildings. Which one are you in?
We're in STEM.
You're in STEM, which is on Scotland Road.
Yes.
And any student can come to you?
Any student.
If necessary, do you go to the students to the other schools?
If we have time available, and we have a waiting list of STEM, which is a complement to our program. We want to expand that program next year. But it's a nice win-win. The school has a point person. We're in there a couple of days a week. The students we're seeing there, they continue to be seen on a regular basis. So it's not limited to 3 sessions, 5 sessions. You can be with us the whole year. You can be with us for a month. But it's a great service because for students, access is key. And
well, young people are a population that we don't always monitor in terms of their mental health. So it's good to have that component in our school system. But now our schools are closed.
Yes.
Our children are at home except to come to the school for meals.
Yes.
And you don't have the everyday access.
No.
Are you still providing those counseling services even though they're not at school?
That's the next challenge we're doing this week, is to contact all those students and see if they want to have phone sessions as well at the regular scheduled time. So we're not cutting anyone off.
And are you working with the Board of Education to alert all of the schools that your services are still available?
Not yet. We're trying to get more staff for that, but right now we're continuing to do the services we have at STEM. The staff is swamped with additional sessions because everyone's asking for a second session a week.
Well, perhaps one of the things that I want to work with you on and the school is to have our community services department just draft an informational bulletin on what people can do, on some of the strategies they can employ if they feel that they're
I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, we'll
I
work on
think
that.
part of the routine has not to be the first thing you do is get up and watch TV. I think because then you're paralyzed with fear, and that inactivity is going to escalate. I think the first thing you have to do is contact people, whether it's relatives or family members.
Is it important to have activities? Is it important to go to the movies? Is it important to go out, to go take a walk? How important is that to us maintaining our mental health?
I think it's extremely important, and I'll give you a good example. I've instructed staff, when you're phoning these clients, get dressed like you're coming to work. Isolate yourself in a room. In that, don't doodle on the pad. You can't have the pets. You can't have somebody coming in. You're working. And I think as you're concentrating at Main Street in a room with a client, you need to do the same thing. And there's been literature all week about that.
So you want your counselors focused on a particular client.
Exactly. Taking a walk, anything active is helpful. We're getting bombarded with messages of fear. Some are legit, and some just make you lose confidence. And if you lose confidence, that's the key thing. So I think it's real important to have a routine, even if you have to stay home.
Where are your offices located?
West Orange.
You're in West Orange. You're right near Evergreen.
Yep, ShopRite.
So you're right in the path where our senior citizens are bused to the ShopRite. You're right there.
Handicap accessible facility.
And while you have reduced rates because of your affiliation with Orange, if they have to make a payment, is that a copay? Is it covered by Medicaid, Medicare?
A little bit of both. We accept Medicaid. If they have insurance, it would be a copay, and we also have a sliding scale fee.
Very nice.
So we're trying to make services as accessible as possible. Before this crisis hit, during this crisis, and after, we've always been, the tradition has been to make it as accessible as possible.
What are you recommending in terms of diets, things we should stay away from, not stay away from, things that bring our anxieties up? Do you have any recommendations there?
Several. Watch the alcohol, number one. Number two, watch the sugar. This is a great time just to sit back and binge and have junk food, and I think it's dangerous. It comes back. Particularly, you're going to see it with your sleep patterns. Okay? So I think this cannot be like a snow day. Okay, this cannot be a day off because life goes on. And it's hard to do it when you're afraid. So as much as, and you feel that pull.
Right.
And you got to somehow fight through it. And it is not easy for anybody. But we're in for this for the long haul, and we have to pay as much attention as possible of how do you get up and do what you need to do.
Give me 3 strategies that I can employ if I'm starting to feel down and I'm starting to spiral out. Give me 3 strategies to keep myself current, and then give me 3 strategies to avoid feeling that way.
I think exercise is helpful, and it doesn't have to be extensive, but it has to be something. A walk around the block, don't judge it. Get up, get active, do something. I think talking to people is really helpful. And another thing that's really helpful that gets minimized is writing. Now, that could be a letter, or that could be an email, but get your thoughts out there. I think the 3 things you don't want to do is isolate yourself, okay? Watch too much TV because they're deciding what you're viewing versus what you want to see. So there might be 5 sensational pieces and one human relation story that's helpful. I would avoid the TV, I would avoid isolation, and I'd be really careful about addiction, drugs and alcohol right now, because it's very easy to rationalize it. Well, these are tough times, it's a crisis, who knows what's going to happen, and then before you know it, that's your coping strategy, and it's not that difficult.
Any word on video games?
Not that I've heard anything extensive, yes or no. It's a distraction.
Okay.
You know, I think the video games where you're interacting with people helps in a certain way. But I think one of the key things here is reducing the level of fear. And everybody's afraid. And that is probably the most dangerous thing.
Well, that feeds into my next question. It's sort of introspective. What is it that I'm the mayor of the town, we have resources, we have employees. What can we do to help alleviate some of the stress, especially those people who are home alone, some seniors who find themselves alone? What can we do better?
I think what the town needs to do is the more hope we can distill, the more hope we can manufacture, the more human contact that we have with each other. People are looking for reassurance, okay, that it's going to be okay eventually. Okay, but they're afraid. They're afraid they're going to die. They're afraid they're going to get cut off from people. People right now are facing the biggest issue. My life is never going to be the same again. And I think the more the town can interact with the citizens and be active, people are looking for help. And they're afraid of the most basics. I can never go to a food store. I can never drive.
Right.
So I think manufacturing hope is the best thing that anybody could do right now in this situation.
To your point, we're out now with greeting teams, serving meals to seniors, greeting them, giving them some of the informational. I hope they take a lot from our session today so that they could at least try to get on a more even keel.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to do what we can to make them happy too. Before we close out, I'm a big music fan, all genres of music. How does that play into making us happy?
I think that's helpful. I think it's soothing. I think it reinforces what has a calming effect. So I think music is big.
Any particular music, or
I think whatever you like. I think that should be the first thing you do in the morning is get the music on. Okay, do some exercise. Talk to yourself positively that you're going to get through this. You cannot get so afraid that you don't do anything, and that's the biggest fear. That inactivity, that curl up in the corner and I just want to die, that's the worst thing that could happen. And if you watch too much TV, it's all doom and gloom, and you won't do anything. Music, exercise, contact with people. You got to prep yourself up, and that's really, really difficult when everyone's reinforcing that this is the end.
I love a lot of the old gospel standards. They really get me going in the morning and throughout the day. You have been in this business for how long?
40 years now at Main Street Counseling.
40 years, and you've seen
a lot.
People who are well, people who are not well, people in between. You've seen seniors, you've seen children, you've seen the entire gamut. Have you seen anything like the conditions that we're facing now with the coronavirus in your last 40 years?
No, because even with Hurricane Sandy or with 9/11, there was a level of hope in terms of we could fix this attack is over, we could rebuild with Sandy. We're still in a mystery with this physically. Right. We don't know what we're doing, so the more we could possibly connect with each other, and it's limited, the better. The number one thing is we have to acknowledge it. This is bad. Okay, and let's take it seriously, but let's somehow keep it in perspective. And that's a challenge. And it's like an addiction issue. You have to acknowledge it first, that this is bad.
How do we reach the counselors at Main Street Counseling?
The number is 973-736-2041. Office staff is still there, handling intakes, Right now, we're open.
What are your hours?
Right now, we're open Monday to Thursday every night from 8 in the morning to 8 at night.
That number, once again, 973. You'll see it on the screen, 973-736-2041.
Yes.
That's Main Street Counseling, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. For crisis, do you recommend contacting 911?
911, you know what another good resource is? 211. There's a hotline called 211. It's incredibly valuable for all problem areas, just not mental health. They've been around for a few years now, and we've used them as a resource. And there's also a crisis center at Clara Mass Hospital, which is a help as well. But I think in this situation, overnight, emergency rooms, crisis centers, but reach out. That's the key.
Reach out. You heard it right here. That's a good resource. Thank you. You can always dial 211 for the hotline. We're going to research that more to follow up on that. And certainly we're going to research Clara Mass Crisis Center and give that information to our public as well. What's your address?
The address is 8 Marcella, Marcella, 8 Marcella Avenue, West Orange. It's a little side street right off Prospect Avenue. We're less than a mile from ShopRite.
8 Marcella Ave, and it's the Main Street Counseling Service.
Yes.
How many counselors do you have on staff?
I think there's 30 now.
30 on staff.
Yes, with a good dozen that can provide services in Spanish as well. It's a large staff. It's grown over the years.
Okay. Dr. Margiotti, what do you listen to?
Oh, a little bit of everything. Like jazz, like rock, like classical, trying to, depending on the mood, depending on the situation, but the radio is always on.
And what are you reading now?
Oh, what am I reading now? You know what I'm reading right now? I've gone back and I've read a couple books on Bobby Kennedy's run in the 68 presidential campaign.
Sure.
So I found it very inspiring.
So you're a doctor, are you teetering into politics?
I don't know politics, although I am political, and I enjoy reading about campaigns and things of that nature. I'll probably stay in mental health, but I've always been interested in that.
I'm also a big reader. Reading something that relaxes you, listen to music.
Yes.
Just so we top off, acknowledge you have a problem.
Yes.
Reach out and contact someone.
Please.
Do not stay socially isolated.
Absolutely.
Music, writing, exercise, all those things are good.
Distract yourself, with those therapeutic tools. I think it's really helpful. And to remind yourself too, Mr. Mayor, to distract yourself.
Right.
You have to work at distracting yourself with things that validate what's important.
So it won't be easy if you're in it.
Not at all.
But it can be worked through. Watch your alcohol intake, your sugar, look at your sleep patterns, things that you become addicted to.
Yes.
Be careful about those.
Absolutely. It's mandatory.
And then reach out. And on our part in the city, we will be reaching out to make sure that we reassure, we bring hope and happiness. If you ever seen me about town, it's always with a smile. I try to have some good humor because although we are in a crisis, if we stick together and avoid isolation, coming together by phone, by computer, by however it is, visit someone, talk to someone, make sure people are in contact. Doctor, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll bump.
We'll bump. There you go.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.